Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Keys to Real Estate. I'm your host, Mary Schuster. Well, Chuck Cain from FNF is back today with part two of our fantastic conversation. And in today's episode, we take a look at how realities are changing on the ground in the realm of your business. Chuck offers some tips on where you might want to focus attention on your shop for increased profitability in these challenging times. He also shares his perspective on two topics that will be of interest to you. The first is something that he's concerned about that might not yet be fully on your radar screen. And then he shares what makes him optimistic about the future in our business. And I know we're all ready to hear some good news. So with that, please enjoy the conclusion of my thought-provoking conversation with the intrepid Chuck Cain. The presenting sponsor of the Keys to Real Estate podcast is RamQuest. RamQuest fosters a customer-first culture built around an unwavering commitment to provide solutions that don't just meet, but exceed expectations. RamQuest's newest title and settlement production solution, Horizon, delivers unparalleled efficiency, robust features, and scalability to ensure you have tools to boost productivity and elevate performance like never before. Horizon streamlines your operation with secure 24/7 access, automatic updates, and all the power that only the cloud can offer. Plus, Horizon offers a direct connection to the industry's most extensive network of service providers and partners. Experience Horizon for yourself when you visit ramquest.com. And now, please enjoy the show. Chuck, welcome back to part two of our conversation.
Thank you. Happy to be back.
I feel like I've taken you hostage, but I'm grateful for you letting me do it.
Happy to.
If I am a state insurance regulator, how do I audit an algorithm?
Well, that's a very good question. And, and I think, the question that is begged by it is if someone's using an algorithm to have a waiver of title insurance, that's not going to be a state insurance regulator's issue. I think the question becomes what happens if there's a title insurance policy that is issued using an algorithm as versus an examination of title. I think that's a real problem because I'm not sure it's really title insurance. I'm not sure that Alta would agree that you can use their policies, their policy forms, because there's been no examination of underlying real estate records. The regulators, the state regulators, they've got their hands full. And as you know, you've been to the NIAC meetings. You know, it's a wide variety of people who are state regulators. Some are very sophisticated. Some have strong staffs. Some, it's like, well, you do know that things have changed since Bill Clinton was in office. And so, it's a struggle for those regulators. And a lot of them, they don't have any money. They don't have any staffing. And quite often, even if they find a problem, they're limited as to how much they can fine someone or do anything other than pulling the plug, either canceling an agent or telling an underwriter they're not authorized to write in the state anymore, which gets into whole other issues. But
it's pretty extreme, yeah.
Yeah. So, I think, the state regulators in regard to our industry, and I've always encouraged, and I've seen it, particularly here in Ohio with our Ohio Land Title Association, they have always been engaged with the state regulator. There have been monthly meetings with the state regulator. Everybody talks about their problems and their concerns. They lay the cards on the table. It's very important for state LTAs to have that kind of relationship. The best of them do have those kinds of relationships. And I think every title agent, whatever state you're in, you want to be very engaged with your state land title association. They are your regulator facing group. And don't complain about what the regulator does if you haven't been willing to sit down and talk to them about it, or your state land title association hasn't done it, or you just simply haven't encouraged them to do it, or you haven't volunteered to do it yourself.
They want a healthy marketplace too.
Absolutely. They want to make it a fair and balanced marketplace. They want to be sure that their consumers in their states are protected, that they are not sold some bill of goods about something. and that they have the capability of regulating those products and services. So it's hard. And again, our friend Chuck Myers in Louisiana, who's been involved in the title insurance industry in Virginia and in Louisiana. But as talking to Chuck, it's like, well, we do a lot of things, and they are certainly very active in Louisiana. But in Louisiana, we've seen property and casualty rates quintuple in 2 years. It is kind of taking attention away from these other issues because we only have so many people and so much money and so much time.
That's right. That's right. All right. Well, lastly, sort of on our national issue roundup, the CFPB's been making some noise again about possibly making it illegal for borrowers to pay for lenders' title insurance.
Yes.
Where are we at? What's going on?
Well, in my experience with the Bureau, and a lot of great people work at the Bureau. I don't want to create any false impressions. They're out doing God's work. But when the Bureau announces they're considering a potential rule, they probably have already written a draft of that rule. So I think that the inclination right now at the Bureau is to impose such a rule. Now, we'll see what comments they get back in regard to it, but where does that leave us? This means that the lender wants to have title insurance on the transaction, they got to pay for it. Well, as the late economist Milton Friedman used to say about corporate income tax, corporations may write the checks, they don't really pay the tax. It's all the customers who pay the tax. If lenders are going to be required to pay for it, I would think origination costs would go up somewhere. The other route is we have a lot of major lenders who have affiliated business arrangements, and so they're going to drive hard to the hoop, especially on those refinance transactions, to capture as many of those in their ABA as they can. They may, and this is something for all of our title agents to think about, they may try to capture that owner's policy side because in most states, to be able to get the discounts for simultaneous issuance and so forth, you have to issue the owner's policy. That's an argument the lender can say to the borrower, look, if we do the owner's policy, your loan policy is, a simultaneous issuance rate of $100 plus endorsements. Or you can pay the whole boat, or will pay the whole boat. And so while lenders maybe, if they have ABAs, may be taking money out of one pocket and putting it in the other, but at least they are putting money back in one of their pockets. So I think ABAs would certainly pick up. We see affiliate business picking up everywhere right now. But I think it is certainly going to be interesting how the industry shakes out. I don't know that lenders who are not inclined to currently move to title waiver AOL, I don't know if such a rule may move them, particularly if they are bank affiliated and tied to a regulated entity. They may not want to go in that direction. They're just going to find a way to pass that cost on. There is no free lunch. But I think there's a real good shot they're going to pass this rule.
Well, with that all said, I know it's always dangerous to prognosticate and forecast, and I don't see your crystal ball on the shelf behind you. So
well, actually, I use this.
Oh, that's perfect.
Because, whenever I ask a question and I just turn it over and it says, reply hazy, try again. So
that's better than all signs point to yes.
Yes.
That's better. Well, thank you for that trip around what we might expect in the future. And all right, so it's been weird times out there for agents trying to find revenue, trying to understand everything that's going on, trying to survive through these times. We feel like it's maybe starting to ease a little bit. I'd love your thoughts about how are people hanging on? Are they finding new revenue? Are they at least being able to maintain profitability? Is business coming back? Tell us what's going on.
Well, I would have to say that most of the title agents that I have talked to in the last, even going back into COVID, those agents that historically have not been driven towards technological change now are almost forced into it. And I think we've seen an awful lot of title agents utilizing some sort of technology to improve backroom processes and reduce costs. AI has certainly in the last 3 years or even longer started to roll out in a lot of different processes. Policy production, commitment production through AI, simple things like scheduling closings. utilizing those services, labor is our cost. It's our big cost. And unfortunately, we don't have that many people in our industry, and we have a graying industry. So we're losing a lot of people. How do you replace those? If you can replace them with Siri, so to speak, and it works, and generally speaking, when I have talked to agents who have implemented AI solutions, while they have been hesitant or their staffs have been terrified about implementing AI solutions, that the very, very, very vast majority of those solutions have worked out very well. And usually after 90 to 120 days of implementation, the staff is like, hey, that's a great idea. Why didn't we do it a long time ago? Anybody who's in the AI industry can tell you that the way to start as a title agent is use AI to do that mundane task in your office that really nobody truly wants to do. Maybe they're doing it, maybe they're getting paid to do it, and they may be concerned about their job security, but those mundane tasks, we've got to move it out. As one AI expert, not in our industry, said, if you can describe your job in 3 sentences or less, you are subject to replacement by AI. So, and what it does is it frees up those people who are doing this mundane task to get the skill sets to do the tasks that require more qualification and more experience. So you really build value in your staff by using AI to do all that stuff that, again, nobody really wants to do, but it's got to be done. And it tends to be the same job every day as it gets cranked out. So, every way to accomplish that, I think that, one challenge that all title agents have, and, we talked about it in previous episode, data privacy, data security, wire fraud. What are cost-effective ways to, and you can never eliminate the problem. You can reduce it down to the absolute minimum. As a speaker at last year's Premier One event, a guy with Department of Defense experience said, if you're going to hire somebody to help you with cybersecurity, don't hire the guy who says, I can do this and you will never have a problem. He said, that's like saying you're going to hire a defensive coordinator for your football team. And the guy says, if you hire me, the opposing team will never gain a yard on us. Well, they will gain a yard on you. The big thing is you want to keep them out of the end zone. And, and that's where cybersecurity is. There is no silver bullet, but you have to do everything that is practically available to you for cybersecurity, which leads into wire fraud and privacy. Those are the uglier cousins that come into play of cybersecurity. That's, title agents are dealing with those issues, but again, to have cost-effective ways to do it, because you have one wire fraud problem, you may be out of business. You may be the greatest title agent in the world. You may have had no issues, no claims for 25 years, and suddenly $1 million is gone and you're done. You're bankrupt. That's where I see, and that's what I hear from the title agents I talk to. A lot of the practices that people were still hanging on to probably 4 to 5 years ago, they're not hanging on to them anymore because you can't afford to do it. We have younger generation, coming in who are like, well, yeah, we should be able to do this, and why aren't we doing this? Why are we still doing these processes the way we did this, back in the Reagan administration? It's time to move forward. That's what I'm seeing. That's what I'm hearing. And looking at your business as a business person. And here at Fidelity F&F, and I'll, shameless plug here, but Ethan Pausner, who works with our agents, and Ethan's been doing this for years. And Ethan helps our agents look at their business processes to streamline them and utilizing their data. And other underwriters assist on that too, and there are other services. So I'm not saying we have the corner on it. Well, I think we do. Anyway, no. But everybody has to look at their business process. How do you run this place? And, a good mutual friend of ours, Jamie Kosofsky, Jamie, North Carolina, what he told me years ago, he said, every year in January, I sit down with all my expenses, everything, rents, people, everything that I wrote a check for as an expense. and I boil it down to how much per hour does it cost me to run this place? And if you can save a nickel an hour, that's a big number. I see more and more agents very attuned to it. Dare I say, those are the successful agents. Yes, there are some people who are dinosaurs with snowshoes, and they may not be around here in the next year or two because they simply can't afford it to be able to do these things and meet the requirements for cybersecurity, wire fraud, and data privacy in particular, but also just to reduce those backroom costs on a day-to-day business process. So
Yes.
that's what I'm hearing, and dare I say, and when I talk to agents around the country, they're all embracing this. Everybody who is successful, they are looking at this and they are embracing how they're going to do things in a 21st century way.
Right. Well, and it's hard because it's never been a high profit business and the margins have always been so tight. And so as these new offerings are coming in, either for efficiency or fraud protection or whatever, it's easy to first look at the expense of them and see, and each one it's only X dollars per transaction, and if you can just walk a exhibit hall floor and go, wow, I stop at 5 booths, and if I sign up for these services that are great and I think I need them, I just went upside down in my transaction. But also the way you have to bring the other side in, as you did, to what costs can be reduced because of them and what risks, because to your point, one wire going where it shouldn't and you might be out of business. It's not a matter of, I mean, we can't embrace the lose money on every deal and make it up in volume thing, but you've got to find some equilibrium there, and you can't be just doctor no to it because you don't have enough margin to pay for the services. You got to be creative there, it sounds like.
Yeah, I think value. My father was in the men's clothing business. You buy for value, not for price. And so you look at what is the value of these services and what can they provide. When someone is at NS3, if they are at Alta One, if they are at any of the tech shows, where they're there and they're meeting the different vendors, it's very important to have meaningful conversations with those vendors as to what can they offer, how do they offer those things, and what might be bundled together. Yes, you might need 5 different vendors to do 5 different things. Maybe one vendor can do 3 of them, but it's critical to do it, and I think it's very important. And I think again, those title agents who are moving forward in the 21st century and are making money and are expanding and perhaps expanding into other marketplaces, and then we see a lot of that expanding into marketplaces where they have not been before. Um, those people, yeah, we see them at NS3, we see them at Alta One, we see them at the tech shows um, because that's where they need to be. Those are the people they need to talk to as to what they can do to reduce those back office costs and provide all those securities and just the day-to-day service we've always provided.
Yeah. Well, and in addition to that, you mentioned that you have some folks that can help with process mapping and all that. What other kinds of tools and services are you wrapping around these agents right now to help them get across this weird threshold from a revenue perspective and the weird market times that we're in?
Well, and I can certainly talk about what we do at F&F, but I think a lot of it is happening at other underwriters. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is not the secret of Coca-Cola, so to a certain extent about how this all works, but providing, education, that is a key thing. Elizabeth Berg, at our company, Elizabeth is dynamic at this. And, and again, I see it at other underwriters too, that, you know, to keep people on top of things as much as their time allows. I mean, that's something that she and I talked about as recently as yesterday. It's like, well, I don't think a lot of title agents spend, 2 hours a day looking at their underwriter website to see what might be there. They don't have that kind of time. You have to sort of lay it out in front of agents because they're busy. They have things to do. But, to prepare them for what may be happening in the future, I mean, we haven't talked about FinCEN. I don't know if we want to talk about FinCEN, but, the potential of these FinCEN rules, this could be very expensive. This could be a big thing. Um, what's happening there to prepare agents for what we can, look across the Jordan and see. And likewise as to The new Alta best practices. Of course, they're not as new as they used to be, but the revised Alta best practices, all those types of things. So agents have those resources that they don't have the time to pull themselves, that they can go to their underwriter website and it's like, here are things. And I think every underwriter has, preferred vendors of some sort. These are people who have been vetted, both as to the quality of their services and as to the quality of their own cybersecurity, the quality of their own financial worth, and things like that. These are all resources that every agent needs to be aware of. I think also too, and I know that you are only too much attuned to this, is that title agents quite often have no idea what their own operating platforms can do for them. And so to have a conversation with the company that you're working with about, well, I'd like to do this. And it's like, well, it's been there all the time. All you have to do is, go to this spot. You only have to click this switch. Say you only too painfully know that, where you've had conversations with, well, yeah, you've had that for 6 years. All you have to do is turn it on. And we've shown you. I think that is also something that every title agent needs to do, is they really need to talk to their software providers. And every software provider now, I think, who is a significant software provider, provides a wide array of services that, it's the old story that, what people only use 20% of their brain. Well, you're probably only using 20% of your software. And it's able to do a lot of things, a lot of lender integrations. I mean, a whole bunch of things to reduce internal cost. So, and again, those agents who are successful, they understand that. And they beat their software to death. They beat their software to do everything it possibly can for them. So,
the number of times, Chuck, that I've seen somebody, and you probably have too, who are out shopping for features in a new software, and they're really contemplating, and sometimes do spend on all the disruption of implementation, all the lost efficiencies in the beginning before, things really get cooking smooth again with everybody's, habit brain and all that. The number of times I've seen them go shopping with a punch list of features that already exist for them that they're just not utilizing. And they don't start. Their first stop is not with their current provider. Their first stop is with a competitor. That's like, I'm not going to go ask my banker, with whom I had a relationship for 10 years, what his price is for a car loan. I'm just going to go out and shop around other lenders before I even check. That is such, I love that you bring that up. That is such an often looked over path.
Yeah. And again, to our, conversation about reducing costs, it's like a lot of that's there. And, to your point, don't just go look for the shiny new toy, because, and first of all, it may not solve your problem. And as we know, anybody who's been through a software change, especially if they've had a long-standing software, it's akin to proctological examination over a period of months. So, it's something that nobody really wants to do. And again, yeah, you're right. It's like, well, if it's already built into the system, ask that question, because it's probably already there. If it's out in the marketplace, if you've got software that's with somebody who's on the ball, they probably already have it. In fact, they may have actually created it and somebody else stole it. So I think all these things in our industry, and of course, the majority of title agents in the United States, and either because of state law or UPL or just by custom, the majority are attorneys. We have a tremendous number of attorneys who are owners of title agencies, owner-operators. And again, in many states, attorneys, the role of the attorney is such that that wouldn't necessarily be the case, or it's just customary. There just are a lot of attorneys who are involved in this, as versus just lay personnel. There is no class, or at least there was no class when I went to law school. Of course, I went to law school with Lincoln, but there was no class at law school about how to run a law office or how to run a business. So you either came with that ability or you developed that ability on your own. And so, that has always been a challenge because we have, lay title agencies. And dare I say, I think those lay title agencies, even if there is attorney affiliation or some attorney owners, they tend to be the ones who push the envelope about moving forward. I mean, some law firms are very technologically oriented, but that typical law firm that writes title insurance in the United States that probably does 10 or 12 transactions a month, yeah, they probably have an up-to-date software platform, but they're not utilizing it completely. And those are the entities who are going to have difficulty moving forward because, again, privacy concerns, cybersecurity concerns, wire fraud concerns, the cost of doing this is going to be difficult unless you mechanize, unless you create that, have that technology in place to be able to do that. But unfortunately, our brothers and sisters at the bar, quite often it's like, well, it worked well for my grandfather. I don't see why we have to change it now. But we are starting to see some change again with some younger generation attorneys. But that has been the segment of our industry where quite often, in conversation that I've had, and I know you have had, with so many attorney agents who are very bright people and they're very good at what they do, but you talk to them about something and it's like, they're just not going to do it. You can tell they're just not going to do it, or they're only going to do it if somebody puts a gun to their head to get it done. It's like, you could save yourself a lot of money. Well, I've got my sister-in-law doing that and I can't change her job. So it is a challenge because the vast majority of title agents are small shops. And of those small shops, the majority are attorneys.
Support for today's episode is provided by October Research. October Research provides national coverage of case law, news, regulatory updates, and competitive business strategies critical for sustaining an innovative and compliant real estate business operation. Our portfolio publications offer independent and unbiased information that helps you stay educated and informed on what matters most to your business. So visit octoberresearch.com to learn more about our portfolio of real estate publications, sign up for free email news, educational webinars, and premier industry events for thought leaders. Knowledge, the competitive advantage. Speaking of attorneys, we've had the recent MLS settlements, and those are winding their way through the completion of the court process, and we're kind of in the implementation of the new world process. What are you seeing out there?
Well, I think we're at the end of the beginning on this. I think we've got a couple years before everything shakes out. I've been doing a lot of presentations within our industry and on behalf of members of our industry to real estate agents. There is a mishmash in the realty world about what information is being passed on, not just to agents, but to brokers. And it depends on the franchisor, depends on the company, depends who they are. Pardon me. And so some are very attuned, some are moving forward. While others, it seems to be like, well, they'll let us know what to do. These settlement agreements that are, that by and large have been preliminarily approved, but they're not final. In the Sitzer Burnett case, the final approval doesn't come through till around Thanksgiving. And we do have 3 plaintiffs who have now objected over their advice of counsel, plaintiffs' counsel, have objected to the settlement agreements. We'll see if Judge Bowe, how the judge deals with those, as far as this sort of global settlement idea. And we've only had consolidation of 3 of the federal lawsuits into the Sitzer Burnett suit by the multi-district committee of the federal judiciary. So there's still a bunch of lawsuits floating around out there. But from the title standpoint, how does this impact us? Well, I think where it impacts us is, and most of the analysts in the realty industry say we're going to see a significant drop off in the number of buyers agents. An awful lot of buyers agents, and say the real estate brokers who I've worked with over the years here in Cincinnati, I've had a real chance to sort of look under the hood about how they operate. One awful lot of their agents are people who sell 2 and 3 houses a year. And as one of my good friends, he referred to them as his tennis club agents. These are people who, they rely on personal relationships. And when there's an opportunity to list a house or to sell someone a house, it's because of someone they know socially. It's not because they're really in the business. Those people are going to find that it's going to be because of the potential reduction, particularly in regard to buyer's agent and buyer broker commissions. And we're starting to see that already take effect. It may not be worth their while to stay in the industry, to pay their desk fee, to pay their E&O, to pay all their costs as an independent contractor. Some analysts say as many as 70% of the buyer's agents may be gone by 2025, the end of 2025. I don't know if it'll be that high, but we've certainly have seen a lot of brokerages that tend to be buyer brokerages sold in the last 6 months because they're concerned about how their revenue streams are going to go. If they're not getting a percentile, instead they're getting a lower percentile or they're getting a flat dollar amount in regard to commission. The other alternative is affiliated business. And so I think, and I've already heard that. I was at the Housing Wire conference in Arizona in April. I have, for 30 years, I've been involved in affiliated business. The term always was affiliated business, ancillary business. The core business of a real estate company is to list and sell real estate. That's their core business. The ancillary businesses, title and settlement, lending, in states that allow property and casualty, concierge services, whatever else they can offer that makes financial sense. Those were always ancillary. At that conference, every speaker who talked about it, the nomenclature changed. The core business of a real estate brokerage is the listing and selling of real estate, the providing of title and settlement services, and the providing of loans. This is the core business. Every speaker there, when they talked about core business, it was inclusive. It wasn't like, well, we do this stuff on the side. This is what we do, because if they don't have those businesses, those brokerages may be out of business. They may not have much in the way of revenue streams. So I think we will see ABAs even more pickup because of this. And also, too, I think for title agents, that they have to be mindful, in those states that allow dual agency, and we have 41 states that allow dual agency. So we may have the same real estate agent, certainly the same brokerage, but it may be, depending on the state law, the same real estate agent may be handling the listing, but also representing the buyer. That may be a shift in marketing because, historically, listing agents tend to be listing agents. And in the vast majority of our marketplaces, it is the buyer's agent. Where the real estate agent has input, it's the buyer's agent who selects the table in regard to closing. That may be one and the same person. And so I think it's something that title agents, they simply have to be aware of their market. Because in some markets, it's not going to change very much. I was in Vermont last month doing presentations. Vermont has had buyer agency requirements for years. So, and the state law, they're among the 9 states that do not allow dual agency because they see it as a breach of fiduciary responsibility. We don't have time to go into that. But in any case, so they've never had that type of issue, and they're not anticipating that kind of issue. So it's not a big issue for the title agents as to who they talk to and who they market to. But it may be a significant difference in different marketplaces as to who we market to. And certainly, even if it's not this 70% reduction that some analysts say in buyer's agents, it's going to be a much smaller pool. We've already seen the pool reduced as the marketplace itself has driven that out. As we know, NAR had its own internal problems in the second half of last year before the Sitzer-Burnett verdict came through and the subsequent settlement agreement. That lost them some membership. So, while it is still a significant trade association, and I don't think it's going anywhere. There were some, predictions of doom of, National Association of Realtors are going to go away. No, it's not. It's not going anywhere. But it's certainly taken some solid hits for a trade association that was, depending on the day of the week, one of the top 3 most powerful trade associations on Capitol Hill. And so there will be changes there. I think also too, if you're a title agent, because the cooperative compensation rule has been driven out as a result of the settlement, because listing agents and brokers always had to put in the MLS what they were offering to the buyer, broker, agent in regard to compensation. That's gone. Can't do it. Not going to happen. And the Department of Justice has their way. I guess it's never going to happen anywhere. DOJ says they do not believe that you should be able to be offering a commission, even a negotiable commission, anywhere. So, so unlike the real estate agent or broker, actually, of many years who I talked to, who said, well, our MLS allows photographs of the house. So I'm just going to have a photograph of the house. It's going to be the bedroom. And on the bed, there's going to be a pillow that has embroidered on it. We pay 3%. It's like, well, no, that's not going to work either. But I think that in regard to how that's all going to come through, if you're a title agent, if you've got a contract that is the source of your file, and it talks about commission in regard to the transaction, I think you want a copy of that buyer broker agreement too, to be sure they agree, because there may be something that's different. And what happens when it says in a real estate contract that 4% is the commission agreed to. So the title agent knows to cut a check for whatever that number is. But the buyer broker agreement says that the buyer agrees to pay 1.5, which is correct. I don't think we have liabilities that come into play in regard to that differentiation. But anybody who has ever been in the title business for more than a month knows that you get that phone call after closing that, the numbers were wrong. And what are you going to do to help solve this problem? I think you want to be able to be sure that those two things match up. And if not, that you get clarity in writing about what it is. And also, too, and again, I heard this I won't mention at what conference. It was not at NS3, but at what conference, where a real estate broker of 30 years said, well, I'll just tell my customers to go out in the parking lot and write a check to each other. It's like, well, that's a violation. And it's also a loan fraud. So it's like, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. So I think that, go forward, while this does not, our industry is not part of this, it's going to affect us. And I think we just have to be careful as we move forward here, that when you get a copy of that buyer broker agreement, to be sure it matches whatever it says in the actual contract of purchase.
Very, very good points. Well, I can't believe I get paid to have conversations with you. It's because I have the best job in the world. But as we kind of bring this to in for landing, I have two final questions for you. I would like to know either something we haven't talked about yet, or something you think that is misunderstood, overlooked, or something that you're just watching. And I would like to know one that falls into the area of concern, and one that you're excited or happy or optimistic about.
Well, one thing which we really haven't talked about is area of concern are the proposed FinCEN rules. And that is something, again, that, I know that we, and I think most underwriters are out there talking to their agents about what that rule, at least to the point where it's going to apply everywhere. We're going to move out of these targeted marketplaces. And if you're handling a transaction that meets the requirements of FinCEN reporting, you could be in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan and you're going to have to do it. So it's going to be everywhere. I think that also, too, I just saw FinCEN rolled out, some of the changing topics. I won't go to that yet. But FinCEN, it's going to be a time crunch to get the information over to FinCEN. You'll have 30 days to do it, but there's a lot of information that, at least in the proposed rule, that you're going to have to ask a lot of questions about the sources of these monies. And when you get into areas of concern about areas around military facilities, I saw that one of the most recent ones, that the addition and into the present rule, the Detroit Arsenal is one of those entities. So if you're within 100 miles of the Detroit Arsenal and you've got foreign ownership, different issue, not FinCEN per se as far as what the FinCEN rule, but foreign ownership, that you're going to do that reporting. Dover Air Force Base in Dover, Delaware. And of course, if you've ever been to Dover, Delaware, it's sort of the middle of nowhere. But that being said, as I recall, I think it's a 400-mile radius. That includes Philadelphia, Baltimore, Wilmington, Delaware, and Atlantic City and all the shore points in Jersey and Delaware. Title and settlement agents, and this applies to settlement agents. So if you're an attorney and you're not doing title insurance, it makes no difference. This is something that is going to require time. You're going to have to ask a lot of questions. Source of funds for cash transactions, which could be a very sensitive issue that in regard to a customer or client. It's going to, and again, educating the real estate community that, well, we've got a cash deal and we've got two LLCs. Well, here's the good news. It's a cash deal. Here's the bad news. It's two LLCs, and we need to know all about them. This is going to be burdensome. It's going to be expensive. It's going to take time. And FinCEN may come down on people if they don't timely report these. And politically, both sides of the aisle want this. This is something where, as a friend of mine used to say, when you're dealing with drunk driving laws, there is no lobby trying to support drunk drivers. And so there is no lobby here, other than, a few groups, representing people who are of, foreign national extraction or foreign nationals saying, we think this is discriminatory. But I think that's going to be an area of great concern. I think, though, as far as, if there's something, to talk about, sort of uplifting, because it's nice to talk about good things, that, we have more tools in our industry now to be able to run efficiently and safely than we've ever had. I remember back in the 1990s when this little company called RamQuest, and I was at Land America. And it's like, gee, RamQuest could provide a platform for title agents everywhere because, at that time it was platforms like Blackacre. These were very small perimeter platforms as to what they could accomplish. And there are more tools, there are more vendors, more processes available to our industry to run efficiently, safely, and profitably than we've ever had. Because for a long time we were viewed as too small to be anything that any major tech company cared about. And when Alta has discussed about the size of the title insurance industry, that almost every state of the union, when they talk about the number of people, if 5,000 people in a state are working directly in the industry, it's 7,500 other jobs. And a lot of that are the tech providers that come into play in regard to our industry. So, there are solutions to an awful lot of the day-to-day problems. You just have to take the time to find them. And if you have questions, reach out to someone like Mary Schuster, but to your underwriter. We're happy to help out, and it's true of every underwriter. I'm not just beating Fidelity's drum here. Though we do think we do a better job. But all that being said, all our colleagues and at the competing companies, provide the same sort of thing. Reach out. There are solutions to the vast majority of the issues, or at least the fixes that can help you ward off the kinds of problems that may come into play. And we have more of that today than we have ever had in our history.
Very well said. And there's never been any glory about sitting around and suffering in silence.
No,
Raise a hand, ask for help. Somebody else has figured it out already.
That's right. And as I learned in law school, there's no honor in being a famous defendant. So you want to be sure that you have everything, in place in regard to these things. So yeah, there is help. There are ways to do these things, and it's not as painful as a lot of people think it is.
Well said. Well, my friend, we've been through interesting times before. We are in the thick of interesting times currently, and I'll make a safe prediction. We're going to have interesting times in the future for a while. Thanks for being here to help everybody guide their way through it.
Happy to be of any help that I can possibly be, now and in the future.
Thanks, Chuck, for sharing your insights. Your wide-ranging areas of expertise combine so elegantly with practical tips to create a truly reliable expertise, and we're grateful that you share it all with us. Now, audience, Chuck's email address is linked in today's show notes if you'd like to keep the conversation going. If you have some questions, I'm not sure anyone has stumped him yet. Thank you all for joining us today. We'll keep bringing you the news, information, and education you need to help you continue to profitably hold your keys to real estate. I'm Mary Schuster for October Research, where knowledge is the competitive advantage.